That's that, and that's that. Hey everyone, welcome Final Cut Pro TV Live. And today we have, all the way from the West Coast, Charlie Austin, trailer editor. And he's working from home, as everybody is, as I am as well. So what's up, Charlie? So people, just let's do a little background for you. I mean, I know you from the Final Cut Pro community for years now, right? And mostly from trailer editing, and also you're an audio guy, because we talk back and forth about that quite a bit, right?
That's where I came from. I was a post-production mixer for years, and then I went to work with a trailer company to set up their mix room, and to make a long story short, basically accidentally cut something funny on the Avid, and then I magically became an editor, and here I am.
Oh, so you like me, I started with audio,
Yeah.
but reel to reel is what I started with.
Yeah, we run 24 track, and I think I forget the name of the system. It was Atari Pro Disc or Studio Vision or something. It was like the very early NLE. And then we switched to Avid Audio Vision, which was a great NLE, or DAW.
Right.
And then they bought Pro Tools and killed that off. And that's about that time is when I switched over to video.
So Avid owns Pro Tools now, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
It was a little more interoperable with Media Composer, but, what are you going to do?
So we got a comment. Hello, Lee Lewis. Hello from Philadelphia. Do you ever get out to the East Coast much? Not this year, but other years.
I haven't this year. I did get back last Christmas. Yeah, a couple times a year. I mean, all my family's back there. And my wife's family is from back there, which is convenient. So we scoot back and see everybody every now and again.
Okay.
Take a look at some snow, run home.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I come out to the West Coast twice a year typically, and that's for the Creative Summit and NAB in Las Vegas. And for the last 2 years, or 2 years, this would have been the third year, smoke.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I learned about N95 masks from the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit 2 years ago when they said, if you have a problem with breathing, bring an N95 mask. And I've been a carpenter all my life. I worked construction, for years, commercial carpentry.
Sure.
We had N95 masks. That's what we used to wear. So I went out and looked at my box. I said, well, that's an N95 mask. How about that? How convenient for this year. So I had some.
Fire season here. It's like hurricane season on the East Coast, or
well,
on the South Coast.
On the Florida, yes, yeah. In Florida, we get hurricanes here, but we haven't had a hurricane direct hit for 10 years, 12 years. I think Irene was the last one. And after Irene, I lost power for 48 hours. I got a generator. After Irene. Yeah. I'm pretty self-sufficient. I have an outdoor grill with gas, so I can make coffee in the morning and make breakfast in the morning. Yeah. And then in the wintertime, I have a wood-burning stove, so that's not an issue. But still, I have the generator. As a matter of fact, I got to start it up. I start it up twice a year.
Because we don't, the power will go out actually about a month ago, it was super hot and a transformer blew up somewhere. And the power was out for long enough so that we had to throw out some food, and I was like, oh man, I need a generator. And it's like one of those things that it's like insurance, you don't need it till you need it. But
right, no, exactly. I mean, all these years I never had a generator until I lost power, and even then, I can get along. As long as I can make coffee in the morning, that's the main thing.
That's good, man. We got a grill too, so it's like we can make coffee and we can cook something.
Exactly.
It's spoiling in the refrigerator.
So our mutual friend Yari Innanen says hello from Helsinki, Richard and Charlie. You know Yari online.
I do. I know a lot of people without really knowing them. So.
Well, have you? I'm trying to think if I've met you at one of these events. Have I met you over the last 3 or 4 years? I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I'm sure we were probably in the same place at the same time, whether we bumped into each other. And I haven't been to NAB in a few years.
Okay.
It's not happening this year, but
yeah. Well, they actually they're making it in October next year. They've
Yeah.
announced. Was that going to work? I mean, not forget the coronavirus.
Yeah. I mean,
Is October going to be a good month to be in? I guess it's a good month to be in Las Vegas because it's not too hot.
It can be hot, but it's sort of on the backside of hot. So, Vegas is always hot. So you go to Vegas.
Yeah, I mean Vegas
We'll
can't
bring you-
survive without events, right? They can't survive virtually. There's no way they can do that.
No, it's gambling and events, and I don't think gambling cuts it anymore. So it's really conventions and hotel rooms.
Right, exactly. I've been there last three NABs. Not obviously this year it wasn't, and I've enjoyed it every time I've been there. I mean,
Vegas is fun in short doses. I mean,
right, absolutely. 3 days.
Get me out of here.
Exactly. 3 days. I went to the Super Meet and I went to all the Final Cut Pro events and they had them. Mm-hmm. So speaking of NAB, so in 2017, Apple announced 2 million Final Cut Pro seats. In 2018, this is at NAB. They had the Apple events. In 2018, they announced 2.5 million seats of Final Cut Pro. And then they stopped. They haven't done anything since then. There's been no update. Now, they also updated the old classic versions as well. They always tell how many seats that they had. Yeah. But for the last 2 years, there's been no update. So we know it's more than 2.5 million. It's probably between 3 and 4 million at this point. That's a lot of seats, isn't it?
I think it's, a lot of people use it. I mean, it's, in the sort of high-end world, it's not as prevalent. But there's a lot more people editing than just the, 5 or 10% of us that are in the, I guess high-end, just for lack of a better term.
Well, the Hollywood, LA, that's what I always hear.
Sure, London or wherever the hub of, media advertising is in your country.
Right.
But, there's a lot of other people doing stuff, and so I'm sure a lot of people are using it. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people in the groups. There's a lot of people online that are interested in it.
Right, exactly.
Types that are touting it. So
do you for editing? I'm sure you prefer Final Cut, but do you also cut on Avid and Premiere?
I do prefer Final Cut. I don't cut on Avid much, if at all. I do, I have the latest version and I keep my subscription up.
Right.
Just, in case sometimes we will get Avid bins, it's like,
okay.
Hey, thing. And I'm the guy who's like the only one who can open it because everybody where I'm at is on Premiere, and that's sort of the primary NLE. And it's not for any particular reason other than that's what everybody's using. So I use Premiere a lot. I use Final Cut. I don't really use Resolve, Resolve to edit. I use Fusion. I don't really know what the hell I'm doing, but I know that
Me too.
To do it. It's got a great planner tracker. So, for screen replacements and stuff that are tricky to do using, core melt stuff is great, but sometimes there's stuff that's just a little wonky, and I've just found that the Fusion planner tracker can deal with jittery things a little better.
I've dabbled with Resolve on and off a little bit. Every time they get an update, I'll go jump in, but it just, I don't know if I want to spend that much time relearning an NLE at this point.
Well, I think it's like, it's, if you're gonna use tracks, if you like using tracks, if you have some reason you want to do that, I think it's the way to go. I mean, it's very, coming from Final Cut, it's got a lot of the similar sort of features and stuff like that, but
right.
It's a track-based NLE, and that really is the reason I prefer Final Cut. That and the fact that you can do a lot of compositing in the timeline. You don't have to jump. In Premiere, you have to jump into After
Right.
Effects. In Resolve, you have to pop into the Fusion page. In Final Cut, you can just, for the most part, do a lot of things without leaving the app. And if you do need to go into Motion or whatever, obviously you can do that.
Were you surprised when 10.4.9 came out in August? They've never done a major release that I know of in August before. I mean, a feature release.
I wasn't surprised because I guess I don't, I don't anticipate things as much, maybe as more common. It's like, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? I'm just like, it works.
Right.
Fix these
Right,
things
of course.
fix and give me some fun new features, and then it appears. But yeah, I don't know why. I think maybe because they didn't have any events, to tie it to. I mean, I think in the past the Creative Summit has kind of been
Right.
their, time frame, and this year, like, whatever.
Right. No, exactly. Historically, they've released major feature updates, not bug fix updates, at NAB and the Creative Summit, with the exception of like one. Everything's been released around one of those two events, anytime they had a feature update. Yeah. So that's why you kind of expect that. And I'm all summer long, summer is slow.
Yeah.
I do Final Cut Pro Radio. I've been doing it straight for 5 years, over 5 years. I've never taken a break. I've never, taken a 6-month break or an 18-month break or whatever. I put an episode out. As a matter of fact, one's coming out today. And the summer's the worst. Yeah. Summer, trying to keep something interesting to talk about, Final Cut Pro related over the summer is just, it's like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do this week or whatever, this episode?
Well, yeah, because it's like production slows down. I mean, this year is obviously an edge case, but
right.
Things slow down. People go on vacation. It's like there's really
right. That's why August. What?
Yeah.
Feature update in August for that exact reason. People are on vacation. I guess this year everything got mixed up. Am I grateful? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
nice.
10.4.9 was the big update, and then they had 10.4.10, which was a bug fix update less than 30 days later, which they've done 2 other times at least in the past, a major feature update, then a bug fix update right after that. So did you have anything special in 10.4.9 that you liked a lot?
It's just a lot of little things for me. I mean, I think in the past when there's an update, I've dug into it a lot more than I have lately and gone like, what's new? What's this? What's this? And, I mean, I love the timeline thing. It's nice to be able to open timelines, close other timelines, that little update to that. It seems to run faster, render stuff faster for me, and I'm on an old iMac, and it grinds away.
Right.
I'm trying to think of anything else that's.
Well, interestingly, so I know what you're talking about. They have that little drop down now in the timeline to close
other timelines or
right.
Close the timeline you're in.
I wish they'd have that in the browser for libraries. Close other libraries just so I don't have to go through one at a time and close them. So we're getting there. We're getting there.
I still miss the event browser. I miss skimming through sequences, through timelines.
Oh, the project browser.
Project browser, yeah.
Yeah. Listen. I like that too. Now, I always ask this question. Okay, in the browser.
I miss the skimmable.
I agree. What? Okay, you can skim multicam clips. You can skim, you used to be able to skim compound clips. I don't know if they've changed that I'm talking about the browser. Yeah. And of course you can skim clips. And you can also skim a project in the share window. That little window comes up, you can drag through it. Why can't you do that in the browser?
I had no clue. I'm sure there's a reason, because it's not like they're just doing it out of spite. But. No,
well, at least not that we hope not. We hope not. No, but I always wondered. That's curious because they had the project library. They used to be able to skim below the timeline areas where it was, and you could skim and you could see titles. And to this, I presume that's coming. That's one of the things that are.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I think I think there's been a lot of, I don't have any special knowledge, but there's been a lot of under the hood stuff, I think, in some of these updates, or, over the last 2 years, where, an update will come out and people are like, oh, there's nothing new. And it's like, well, yeah, but they probably just rewrote the entire video line,
Metal 2 was last year. They brought that in.
Yeah, and now we're moving to, as you mentioned earlier before we were on the air, the Apple Silicon. So, who knows what they're dealing with in the basement that we never get to see.
Well, is it ironic that they built that gigantic spaceship campus and now it's empty?
Yeah.
It's empty. Steve Jobs, it was one of the last things he did is he got that passed through whatever the local government was to get that done. And we've seen it the last, we go to the gift shop, which is actually right across from it. You can actually physically see it.
Okay.
Last year, we were supposed to go into the actual spaceship campus. This was last November. And then all summer long, yes, we're going in. Then the last 2 weeks, it got canceled.
Yeah.
Said, nope, you're not going in. You're going back to this, which is fine. I mean, the visitor center is also very, very cool.
Yeah.
You can buy swag there that you can't get anywhere else. They have all kind of, I think they had some tours, 3D tours or stuff you could see. Yeah. And you can, still see the campus. But then they closed it down. I mean, I don't think they ever got full. I think they...
Yeah, I think people started moving into it and they were probably on the okay, here we go, big push. And
right, you would think. Well, when we visit, one of the best things about the Creative Summit, which this year is called the FCPX Global Summit, one of the best things about it is you get to go to Apple campus, and you get special badges or whatever. Every year it's a little different, and you get to see the Final Cut Pro team present in those theaters that they have over there, and that's a big highlight.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sure.
Last year we got that as well.
I think that's, it's not just this business, but a lot of businesses, the whole sort of in-person meeting event world. I have a company I used to work for in Boston called AVFX, plug. They do staging for conventions and events, meaning projectors and sound systems and lighting rigs. And, when you go to an event and you see the stage with all that stuff, that's what we used to do. And their business has just been killed, because they're global. They're doing, they're working in Paris, the Paris Air Show. They do, things like that. And it's just, stuff's not happening. So it's, anyway.
So I forgot, you're from Boston?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're an East Coast guy then.
That's where I growed up.
Did you go up during the Rathskeller days when they had all those bands in the Rathskeller?
The Rat Shelter. Yes, I did.
Shelter. So in Boston, they had the Rathskeller, Rathskeller, whatever the heck it was.
Rat, that's what they call it.
Yeah, in New York, they had CBGB's, of course, and Max's. And in Baltimore, they had a place called the Marble Bar. These were all the underground punk kind of places that they had. Yeah.
It was in there. They had the Rat, Bun Ratties. I don't know. There were all sorts of, lots of live music places, and that's kind of gone away everywhere, too.
Yeah.
Not because of the pandemic. I mean, obviously, it's gone because of that, but even before that, that whole live band scene was drying up.
Well, you're absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, I miss it so much because I had a recording studio in the 80s and the 90s, reel to reel in those days, and then toward the end of the 90s, I got Mark of the Unicorn, the Motu digital interface for the first time. I wanted to do this one project I was working on, so I got that. and that was my first Mac when I got Final Cut Pro and stuff. And I miss it so much working with bands because I was a little bit on the selective side. If I didn't like the band, I really wouldn't work because I didn't have to. I had another job. But if I did like the band, boy, I loved working with them.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Well, what I decided to do was I'm starting to live stream concerts from my studio. Well, not from my studio. From the place where I live, I have a double car garage.
Right.
So I'm going to live stream starting Saturday a band, and they're going to be all the way in the front of the double car garage. So they're basically outside, just barely under. And I'm going to start doing those live streaming those concerts, bringing a couple of, just a couple of bands I have coming up and live streaming those on Saturdays. So that's going to be fun.
It's very cool. Yeah, that's sort of how I fell into this whole world. Was I was in a band. I was a musician. And
okay.
Played covers on the East Coast for years, driving up and down the East Coast, playing at machine bars, and spent a lot of time in recording studios. And that's kind of how I got the gig when I moved out here, starting as an assistant engineer. Basically, I had never worked in a studio. I had recorded in a studio, and I knew kind of how everything worked. And they're like, well, can you calibrate a 24-track machine? Can you do this? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. How the hell do you do that?
Yeah, exactly. When I got a job at the National Archives 11, 12 years ago, and I went for the interview downstairs, and the guy said, he saw my resume. It says all Final Cut Pro, Final Cut Pro, Final Cut Pro. And he says, well, we have Avid upstairs. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's fine. I said, I can learn that. I know how to edit. And then he says, on a PC. I said, oh, crap. Not only is it Avid, but it's also on a PC. Nothing wrong with Avid, but I knew nothing about PC, so I couldn't troubleshoot anything. Yeah, so I was the editor that they brought in, and I eventually became post supervisor. But listen, when I first started on the Avid, I bought PDF. I mean, I would get PDFs all over the internet, and I'd print them out. Okay, I do it this way in Final Cut. How do I do it on the Avid? Okay, let me see. Okay, this. And I did, I worked with for a while, and then the PC crapped out, so I brought either a very early Intel Power Mac or Mac Pro from downstairs, or a Power Mac G5, one or the other, that they had in the theater they weren't using, and I snuck that up there and started using that, and ever since then they were Final Cut. Then I can get things done.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I still own Media Composer, and I go into it and poke around. And I worked on Avid. That's what I started cutting on for years. And it was, second nature, just like anything. I'm just like, keyboard shortcuts. And now I go in and I'm like, how do I use this again? Because it's like if I had got thrown in front of a mixing desk.
Sure.
Like, hey, we want you to mix this feature. And I'd be like, I don't remember how to do it. I know this makes the sound louder.
Right.
There's all these effects. I have to chain them together.
So do you work with Pro Tools much these days?
I don't.
Okay.
Really, only, I mean, I've obviously Fairlights and Resolve and Logic Pro, but I don't have Pro Tools. It's just a subscription that I really don't need.
Well, don't they have an option for buying it?
Oh, go ahead.
Don't they have an option to buy Pro Tools?
Yeah, it's the same deal as with Avid. Is you buy it and then you pay a subscription fee yearly in order to get the updates. If you don't, now it's not like Premiere. With Avid, if you're like, I don't want to pay for it anymore, well, then you're cool. You just stay with what you got.
Right, the version that you paid for, exactly. Unlike
Premiere, which is like, oh, you stopped paying your subscription, too bad.
Is that model of subscription, it just drives me crazy. I tell people all the time, now, your app will stop working if you stop paying your monthly fee. They said, no. I said, yes, it will actually stop working.
It'll work for a little while until it phones home. And then
phones home.
Sorry.
Yeah, that drives me crazy as well. So one of the things, Logic, I use Logic a lot, and one of the things when 10.5 came out that really reset my expectations for what Logic is it had nothing to do with post-production film work. It was 100% music.
Right. Well, that's where it came from when it was.
No, I understand, but I kept thinking, okay, well now they're going to, do a little more post-production stuff. I mean, I use it for editing audio, dialogue all the time, but I've been using it for years and years and years. And even like Motu, Mark of the Unicorn Digital Performer, has people that do films, score films and stuff. They use that, but Logic's not really meant for that. It's meant for music. And when 10.5 came out and there were no updates in that direction, my expectations were really reset.
Yeah, I mean, I've run into like sound design. I've gotten sound design projects, then people are using Logic because I forget what it was, some feature we were working on, and we had a trailer that we needed to use that. For whatever reason, they're like, here's the Logic project. And it was like, wow, it works.
Right.
It wasn't like scoring or anything. It was just sound effects and craziness. But it was, timeline this big. It's nuts.
So when I know you as a trailer editor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I guess that would be my classification.
And so tell everybody exactly what that is. You make trailers for movies, TV shows.
Yeah, it encompasses a lot of stuff, but yes, we make trailers for movies, whether they're theatrical, many TV commercials for movies, not so much TV shows. We've been doing some stuff for social media, but basically the same thing. They're spots. They're 30-second spots or whatever.
Okay.
So it's the same process, whether you're doing a 2.5-minute thing for the theater or a 15-second thing for TV or Snapchat or whatever it is.
Right. Well, I like it when people bring me a project and they say, well, this is only 30 seconds. How much will this cost?
Yeah.
And I say to them, I said, how much do you think they pay for a 30-second spot at the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
How long do you think that takes?
It's nice if we got paid what they pay for the ad time. But
sure, exactly. I said 30 seconds doesn't mean anything to me. It depends on a lot of other factors. Absolutely.
It's like a talking head and a music track, and fine, that'll take 10 minutes. But if it's take this feature film and distill it down into 30 seconds and then find your own music and cut music and design all the sound and make all the graphics, and it's another world.
Absolutely. So do you go back and forth from Final Cut to Logic much with audio?
Not really. I record VO in Logic.
Okay. I do too.
Or if I'm just doing temp stuff, I'll generally do it in there. And sometimes I'll go in and poke around doing, sound design, or, if say I need a sound, whatever, I'm doing music, and I'm like, I need a drone in E flat minor. I can go hunt through sound libraries because those exist.
Right.
But then you pay for them. It's like, well, screw that. I'm just going to open up Logic.
Sure.
Throw a couple sounds together and make something cool. So that's pretty much what I use it for.
So one of the things that you said you do VO and Logic. I do too. I don't care technically why this is wrong. I can hear a difference recording in Logic than I can in Final Cut. I know it's using the same audio engine, but same interface, same microphone. I can tell when I do a VO in Final Cut occasionally for something simple, it just sounds different than when I do it in Logic. I don't know what it is.
I believe it. I probably don't listen to things as critically as I might have once in the olden days when I was more worried about sound.
Right.
I do listen to things critically. But
of course you do.
As far as like an audiophile, I've never been this sort of like, my record sounds better than my CD in that world. It's just like, yeah, whatever. Maybe it does, but I'm not a dog. So
no, exactly.
But I believe, it is the same audio engine, but there's stuff in Logic that,
Yes,
as
exactly,
who knows,
exactly.
they've taken parts of Logic and put it into Final Cut. I mean, I know Final Cut has a lot of parts from older apps, other apps. They may be replaced, they may not. But, for instance, Final Cut's, when you retime audio and you preserve pitch, it's seamless unless you just get ridiculous with it.
Right.
Because I do it in other, try and do it in Premiere or whatever. I'm sure maybe in Audition it probably is okay, but I'm not going to pay for that.
Right.
I think that probably came from Soundtrack Pro. I mean, because that was always just dead nuts on great. But who knows?
Right. So one of the, I've done I did a video years ago about 10 things in Logic I wish Final Cut has. And to this day, there's one thing that I don't understand why Final Cut doesn't have: 0 crossings.
That would be nice.
But it seemed like
an amount of time zooming into samples and just moving the damn thing over. But
right. It seems like you can't do the 0 crossings yet. I said, please take the Logic guys out to lunch and grab that one. I mean, when they brought the plugins over, I remember exactly where I was when I found out. Mark Bach, Mark.
Yeah.
We were at the Creative Summit, and he wasn't at the summit, but he came to the Apple event. Mm-hmm. And I always teased him that, he got his private invitation from Tim Cook. But he opened up, what version was it, 10.3 or 10.4, that they debuted at the summit, and he opened up the plugins and found the Logic plugins were in there. He was the first person to expose that. They don't like you touching things when they're demoing, and they have a demo after the presentation.
Right.
But he said, hey, the Logic plugins are now in Final Cut. I said, wow, all those compressors, those great compressors that they have.
I just had Logic plugins, but they didn't have the new ones. They had
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah, when the new ones came out, it's like, oh, nice.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the things I like about doing audio in Final Cut is that you've got all that stuff.
Right.
It's just like, what do I need? You have all the sort of canned stuff that Final Cut gives you, a lot of which is great. Some of it's ridiculous, but whatever. But it's like, but you can get in and change those. I like things like Robot, or not. I don't use that, but the fact that you can get in and open it up to they use like 5 different plugins and they put it in a nice little package, and you could customize it and make your own preset.
Exactly. So I do when I do transcriptions, I have options of doing a text with timecode, which I always do. Mm-hmm. And I have the option of doing a Final Cut Pro XML. And is it an AAF that opens in Logic? Pro Tools Logic? Yeah. So I can do all 3 of those. Once I do my transcription, I can go back and export the media and those 3 specific things. So I usually just go right to Logic with that. And then I always do the text transcription. And one thing that I recommend people that work with transcripts, I always do, because I edit the transcript, I always do the entire transcript first as a text document with time code. Then I go back and do the edited one with time code. Yeah. So I make 2 copies all the time. So I can always go back, because I like going back through a text document, doing a Command F, searching for a subject, and I can see where it is. Gets me in the ballpark if I want to redo that subject or pull a little clip out or whatever.
Yeah, I miss. We sometimes do that. I've also used to use, because it doesn't work anymore, Soundbite from Boris, which doesn't give you a text file, but it searches. It's like Avid's got a version of it that you have to pay for. I can't remember what it is, but basically you could just throw in your file, your movie, whatever, and then you can just search for words, and it was just great for like cheating dialogue. It's like, God, I need somebody to say the.
Right. Is it script sync? Is that what it was?
It's not script sync. It's
script find. It was something with script, I think.
Phrase find, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that is something that I really like to see. That but that's not part of Avid per se. It's a bolt-on, something that they bought or whatever.
I forget the name of the company the technology. But I mean, yeah, I'd love to see that in Final Cut. I mean,
I would too.
Text to speech and speech to text, and it's like it just built into the OS. It'd be nice if you could hook into that and just let me type in, hey, I want to find a word in this file. I don't need a transcript. I just want it to go with it.
Sure. So do you think with the Apple Silicon that Apple's talking about, that something like that is going to be possible with the new... I mean, people keep talking about Apple Silicon like it's going to be, 10 times better than Intel, which of course it's not. It's going to be a little bit better, a little bit more each year.
I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm a nerd, but my nerd skills only go so deep, and so I don't know. I mean, they're doing a lot of stuff with AI, and
right.
And there's that whole, I forget what it's called, the AI kit, AI, who the hell knows. But it's, it opens up a lot of interesting possibilities, I think.
No, it absolutely does. I'm going to be curious. I got a 2019 Mac Pro, which is hands down the best Mac I've ever owned in my life. And it's, I have PCIe slots open, I think 3 or 4, for anything coming up in the future with, somebody said something about a new Mac Pro with updated graphics. Well, that's just a PCIe card. Yeah, I just plug it in if I wanted to get it. I got 32 gigs of RAM in this one that I got. Listen, I got 8 Thunderbolt 3 ports. 8.
Yeah.
So, well, that's the one we were talking. You have an iMac. I had an iMac for years. I never got the other Mac Pro, the cylinder one. I just didn't. It didn't fit what I liked about Macs. So I had iMac for years. 3 of them, I think. Mm-hmm. And then when Thunderbolt 3 came out, the iMac only has 2 ports, and that always was problematic for me. I have more things than that.
Yeah. The iMacs have always worked for me because what we're doing is not, or what I do, what we do. It's not the guy who's doing the After Effects stuff. He needs a sort of hardcore rendering beast. What we do as editors, like I told you, I'm working from home on a 2015 iMac.
Right.
And it's fine for what I'm doing. And I'm doing, I'm doing some project now that has a lot of graphics and building phone UIs and putting it into awesome iPhone. Ryan Wellborn makes it.
Right.
Again. So I'm building all these UIs and putting them in. There's nests and compound clips, and it's piled up, and it, it grinds through it.
So you're absolutely correct. One of the good things about Final Cut Pro, it always works on hardware that's years old, like you're talking about. So let's talk a little bit about roles. So,
I love roles.
Yes. So first off, explain what a roll is for people that maybe are beginning in Final Cut compared to a traditional NLE, which had just tracks. You had tracks of audio, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So rolls are different. Tell us about rolls briefly. Rolls are
different. I mean, I guess they'd be analogous to like a bus. Is that fair?
Yeah.
In a digital, in other words, you could take a bunch of tracks and make them all go into one place. And rolls are like that, except for those of you who know this is 101. You just basically tell it, this is music, this is an effect, or this is you can have sub-roll, so this is a low-end effect. And
right.
This is dialogue, this is narration, and you can do it with picture too. This is titles. This is the title that go with this date version. This is the slate that goes with this date version. And you get the little index in the side, and you can just click them on and off, or you can share presets where you say, this version use these things. So it doesn't do anything that you can't do in another NLE.
Right.
But it's just, well, that's actually not fair. It does. But it just makes it so dead nuts easy. There's no, track patching and reordering your timeline. I mean, you can just cut, and then you press a button, it's poof, it's all nicely organized for you, and then you just export it and do what you need to do, or whatever.
So how can Apple improve the use of roles? I mean, do you see a roles-based mixer at some point?
I would like to see the ability to, well, two things, and I actually posted something about this on Twitter the other day. I would love to see roles open up in the timeline.
Okay.
Media Composer has this, like in Premiere, you make a nest and you're screwed. You have to go back into it, copy things, and put it back into the timeline. Final Cut, better, yeah, you can't, what do you call it? I forget the term for it, but you can take a compound clip in Final Cut and highlight it and break it apart. That's what it's called.
Right.
And it's right back to where it was. Now you can't get back to where you were, so if you had put effects on that compound clip, you got to start over. Premiere, you can't do that. You have to actually jump into it, copy everything, paste it back into the timeline. In Avid, you can, I forget what they call it, nesting or mix, there's a term for it. But you take your tracks and you go, I want these all to go into a compound clip.
Okay.
But then there's a little triangle on it. You click a little triangle and it pops it open. And if you've got, say it's on track 4, it'll say 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, whatever. And then you can trim it. You could add effects to those clips and then pop it back down. In Final Cut, you obviously have to double click to jump into the compound.
Right.
And changes to it. That would be huge if you could do that.
Yes. Well, one of the things that exactly what you're talking about for compound clips and even multicam clips is it takes you out of your current timeline. So if you go into a compound clip, you double click it, it takes you a different timeline. You have no relationship, visual relationship of where that compound clip is in the main timeline.
Correct. And you can, they changed it so when you double click on it, it'll pop up in the compound clip where your cursor was.
Yes, they did that.
The grand scheme of things. And the reason I brought it up in terms of roles is because that brings up another thing. It would be nice to be able to have a little interface somewhere in the index where you could add effects to a role, to a role, yeah.
Sure.
Because now you basically have to, let's say you've got your narration, whatever, and you want to put an effect on the whole thing, and ride the levels. Well, you can do it in each individual clip, or what I do is just make a compound clip of the narration, throw some filters on it, maybe tweak the levels, and you're done. It would be nice to be able to either have the roles, so you could just put in filter on over here in the index instead of clip by clip.
Right.
Or what I would probably use it more for is I would still comp stuff, because I think for me, I like to, if I need to adjust levels, it's nice to have it just as a single clip, and I throw compressors or whatever the hell I want on it. But then, if you want to make any tweaks to the internals, you got to jump into it and jump back. You can break it apart, you lose everything you've done. So it'd be nice if there was some mechanism to not have to do that, like be able to apply effects to roles, and then you could comp them and you could do whatever. And if you needed to bust it apart, you haven't lost all your effects. Right.
So wouldn't a roles-based mixer do that? I
think it would. I guess the reason I sort of hem and haw is because I don't miss a mixer. I don't miss faders. I guess I'd be okay if there was like one fader and you assign it to whatever you want. You know what I mean? But that might be kind of okay. But I honestly, and I came from being a mixer.
Right.
Years. I never used the faders in Final Cut 7. I never used the faders in Premiere. I never used the faders in Avid. And if there was faders in Final Cut, I don't know that I'd use them. Now, having said that, some sort of effects patching
Sure.
would be nice.
Like you said, if you can just put a compressor on this roll in the timeline index or another interface, just put a compressor, and then you just adjust that one compressor. You don't have to jump in and out of compound clips. See, I think Apple is, I'd be surprised if they're not doing something, people call it a rolls-based mixer, but I'm not sure if it'd be traditional faders, but something.
Based on everything else they've done. It's like, hey, here's this thing that you're used to it working this way, but look at how it works now. It's like, you go from what the hell to this is amazing. Which is
did you have that reaction when you first got your hands on Final Cut Pro 10.0?
Oh, my God, yes. I opened it up and I was like, what in the heck? What is this? Really, it was unusable. When it was
at the beginning, but at the beginning.
What I needed it for, I mean, you couldn't get, you couldn't export EDLs, you couldn't do AFs, which you can now do with plugins. But yeah, it was just like, wow, I do not understand this thing at all. And that's when I like, oh God, I guess I got to relearn Premiere. I guess I got to whatever. But over time, I was just like, okay, I'm going to figure out how this thing works. And yeah, you get to a point, and now I'm just like, if I could throw everything else away and just work in Final Cut, I would be thrilled at the reality of my world. But,
well, there's so many things with Final Cut that makes it hard to go to another NLE. The live skimmer, we still don't. Every time I go to Logic, I'm going, man, Logic guys, can't you gave Final Cut your plugins, can't you get that live skimmer? Can't you get that from them over here? Because I miss that every time I go somewhere else.
Yeah, live skimming of everything. Just, I mean, Here in Media Composer and Resolve, you can skim the thumbnail.
Okay.
That's it. You get the little chiclet, and you skim it, and you've just moved 40 frames. You don't have film strip view. Film strip view is the bomb for audio and video. And you just there's no click and hold. It's just drag around. It's something that kind of drove me crazy with Final Cut originally in the timeline, because you're always skimming. I mean, you can obviously turn it on and off. But I've just gotten so used to it. I now when I flip NLEs, and it's like, oh God, I got to click and drag this over here.
Or double click, right.
Yeah. So it's just, there's a lot less clicking, which I like.
Right.
I mean, that's why I like Final Cut. It's easy. There's less, everybody said this for years. There's less driving the app and more just working.
So going forward, I mean, they're working on something big, obviously, for whatever 10.5 or 11, whatever they're going to call it. It seems like they're rewriting stuff because it's taking a much longer than normal, the normal update cycle. I don't know if that's tied to Apple Silicon. I don't know if there's going to be some feature-specific things for Apple Silicon that we're not going to have on the Intel side. I mean, Tim Cook did say he's supporting Intel in Mac OSs for years, plural, to come. So we can expect 2 more updates of the Mac OS. And even then, when they stop supporting Intel, that doesn't mean your stuff stops working.
No. I mean, that's historically been, like the old QuickTime player. It's like, it's going away, it's going away, it's going away. Well, it was going away for, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, until finally it's like, okay, we're done. But it's in their best interest of, why would they not support it? It's like you bought their stuff. You want to use it until smoke comes out of it, and then you get a new one.
So the new, they also at WWDC announced that there were new Intel Macs, plural, in the pipeline. Well, they introduced the iMac, which has gotten really good reviews across the board. Everybody just really thinks that's a good machine. I wonder what the next Intel Mac is going to be. Would it be the iMac Pro? I don't think it'll be a Mac Mini.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, that would be pretty cool, though, if you had a Mac Mini that was as powerful as a iMac Pro, and you just had to go out and buy your own, buy your Apple monitor to go with it. Right.
I was talking on Twitter yesterday with some people, and somebody said that they don't think there are any more Intel Macs coming, even though Tim Cook said plural, Macs plural. and he's said something about Steve Jobs said the exact same thing and only introduced one Mac, PowerPC Mac, after they switched to Intel. Nope. I went back to the Steve Jobs WWDC in 2005. He did say the exact same thing. He used the same thing, the pipeline and everything. 4 PowerPC Macs came out from WWDC for the next 6 months. It wasn't 1, it was 4. So Tim Cook said Macs, Intel Macs. We have some Intel Macs in the pipeline that we're really excited about. The iMac seems to be a home run.
Yeah.
People, just reviews everywhere I see this is really good. So I'm wondering, what's the next one going to be? They have till the end of the year. I'm just thinking maybe it'll be the iMac Pro. It might be a MacBook Pro.
Yeah, exactly. It might be a new MacBook Air. It might be one that plugs into your brain. I don't know.
Right, exactly.
A little key.
Well, we're getting there, aren't we? Look, we got headphones, we got whatever. It seems like we're getting to that stage where we're going to be half robotic.
My Final Cut is taking so long because they're rewriting it for the glasses.
There you go. There you go. You look at the edit, and it just does the edit. That'll be.
Eyes will tell it where to go. So,
exactly.
Here, look up and down.
So the other thing about 10.4.10 is that opens the door for 10.4.11.
Yes.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it? Apple's a little sneaky that way. Okay, we're going to give you 10.4.10, and now we can do 10.4.11. We don't have to go do 10.5 or whatever the next one's going to be.
Well, historically, everybody knows. It's like the 10 point whatever updates have been huge updates. And all the other ones are just like, we've fixed some bugs. We've done other stuff that you don't need to know about.
Right.
And here's a couple of cool new features.
Right.
Sort of keeps everybody from flipping out and going, Apple doesn't care anymore. Which is,
Well, that's the only thing we can. The only thing that I do is I base it on precedent, what they've done in the past, and of course that doesn't work because if that worked, we would have. It works some of the time. Like I said, they've released major feature updates at NAB and FCPX Creative Summit for years. Last year, Creative Summit, nope. 10.4.7 came out in October, and we didn't get any update around the Creative Summit this year, even though we went to see Apple.
Yeah.
So,
maybe it's tied to Big Sur. I mean, maybe
it was more complicated. When we were there, a lot of us were talking, and we were saying, well, it seems like it's more complex. The Final Cut Pro team cannot just do things independent of Apple. Apple's going to dictate to them how to do things, when things are going to come out. So it almost seems like the Final Cut Pro team's hands were tied a little bit for that event. However, so this year it's virtual, of course. They're having a Creative Summit the 16th through the 22nd of November. It's all online, and it's longer. It's like 6 days. Rather than, yes, it starts on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday through Saturday this year. And they're going to have the normal sessions, training sessions, Mark Spencer, Steve Martin, all the usual people that teach will be doing sessions.
Yeah.
It's only $199 instead of $800, $900 for in-person. But the interesting thing is Apple is presenting this year.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to be interested in.
Hey, maybe I'll spend the money this year.
Yeah, it's pretty good price, $199. I mean, just to see the Apple thing. Here's the thing. In the past 3 times at the Creative Summit, there was no restrictions. When Apple introduced something, we could talk about it, we could take photographs of it, we could post it on social media. Last year was the first time there were restrictions about that. So if they have an Apple presentation, hopefully we can talk about it if it's something new, right?
Well, I mean, there could be stuff, like you said, I think the Final Cut team is like, yeah, we're doing this, and then the, Apple
exactly
operating system goes, well, this frameworks you've been using, yeah, we're not using it
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Stuff in Big Sur that's like, because I think Final Cut is tied into the OS frameworks way more than any other NLE because everybody else is, cross-platform. So they kind of their own stuff for the most part. I mean, they still obviously use the OS.
Right.
But I think Final Cut is just like, without the OS, it doesn't exist. And so maybe there's some fancy thing in Big Sur that they're like, maybe it will be facial recognition or text to speech or text speech or search for, who knows,
Are you using Big Sur at all? I'm on the public beta.
I actually haven't. In the past, I've been one of those like, I'm just going to update to the beta as soon as it becomes public. And in this case, I'm still actually on Mojave.
Okay.
And which is weird for me because I'm usually like, what operating system you're running? It's like, whatever the beta is.
Right.
Does it work? Yeah, mostly. But I think because there were some issues with Catalina that affected me, Boris Soundbite, the 64-bit apps dying. And there were a few that I needed, so I just stuck with it. And recently I've been just going, okay, I got to update. And then I'll be like, but I got this project and it's like due in 10 minutes. I don't want to.
Right. 10 minutes. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. So my MacBook Pro it actually was one generation behind OS, but now it's updated. And so Catalina, this is what I've heard. There's problems with Catalina and Final Cut Pro that they can't solve. This is what I've heard whispers, in the community. Then they're waiting for Big Sur to introduce some things. So that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I've got a MacBook Air that I was using on the road, so I didn't update it to anything. But maybe I'll I'll update that and use it as a test horse.
There you go. Well, what I do on the Mac Pro, I have the native hard drive. I got a 2 terabyte SSD from Apple, and then I also installed another 2 terabyte SSD on a PCIe card, and I installed Big Sur on that. The second one.
Yeah, I would. When I have gotten the public betas in the past, I always stuck them on an external drive, and I can boot the computer up for that, run off that, and I just haven't bothered doing that this year.
Yeah, Big Sur is probably coming out in October. Typically it came out. I thought they typically brought it out in September, but this year's messed up. Of course, the schedule is messed up. They didn't even do the iPhone event in September because they're delayed. So that'll be likely in October. The other question I have, see if you have an opinion on this. Are they going to just release this first Silicon Mac with a press release, or are they going to have an actual event or piggyback the first Silicon Mac on like the iPhone event? What do you think?
No idea. I mean, you would think that they would make a big deal out of it.
Because it's a big deal, changing over, Yeah,
exactly. I don't think they made a big deal out of it when they went from PowerPC to Intel because it was, people were like, well, you're abandoning our platform.
Yeah, after doing the opposite.
The same thing's going to happen. I mean, you can't keep anybody happy. But I would assume they would make a big splash.
Since it's going to change the course of Apple hardware going forward, I would think so too. So if they don't, to the Apple iPhone event, everybody's saying it's going to be the October the 13th, is whenever. They haven't announced it yet, but that seems likely. I mean, the iPhone's the biggest moneymaker, so they have to have a big event for that.
Yeah.
So will they show it at that, or they could show it around the Global Summit, FCPX Global Summit, because it seems like, I don't think they'll have a third event this year, but they could. Sometimes they have a third event for iMacs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it might be around the Creative Summit or the Global Summit, they call it this year, just because it's Final Cut Pro related. They can show Final Cut Pro, whatever. Yeah. I mean, maybe not at the event, but just like the day before, day after, and then they can show it at the event or a preview of it, because that's November.
They've done that before. They've done the
they have.
Like, here, look at this thing.
They absolutely have. So that'll be interesting. This year will be very, very interesting. So Garrett says, hi, everyone. Who's going to participate in the FCPX Online Summit this year? I think a lot of people are.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people.
I might actually do it. I've not been to one of those things because I'm just like.
You're busy.
I'm busy, and it's like, I know about Final Cut. I don't need to go see it again.
Right. Well, it's the same with me.
I mean, there's more than that. And it's
exactly.
nice to see all the people, but I've just never been able to justify the expense.
Right. Exactly. So that's the same with me. I come from the East Coast, so I got airfare plus I'm usually sponsored to come out there. I've been sponsored all the time. So, but I don't go there for the sessions, which are really good. I enjoy them. I go there to have bagels and coffee with people in the morning and talk to people in the lobby. Yes. And then the Apple presentations. We get 2 of them. We go to the Apple campus on Friday typically, and then Saturday, the Final Cut Pro team comes to us and has they've done it twice. They've done it twice. A private, under NDA meeting that no photographs, no audio recordings, nothing is to leave this room. And if you do that and be good, we'll do it again next year, which is what they did for the last 2 years. So I'm wondering how that's going to happen this year, if it's going to be restricted to just the attendees. Typically in the past, Apple said, look, this is only for the attendees of the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. That's what they told us. This is one of the benefits of coming to the summit, is you get this special private meeting. I wonder if they're going to do that again this year with the virtual one.
I don't know. I mean, it's possible. You just here's your password.
Yeah.
Sign the meeting, and we know who you are. And if we hear about it out in the world,
well, that's the thing. They said, if this doesn't work, we won't keep doing it.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how that works.
It'll be interesting. Like I said, I might be worth a couple $100.
It's only worth it's $199, and it's 6 days. Now, typically before they did a lot. They did 8 hours a day. I guess because it's 6 days, it'll be spread out more.
Yeah, probably. I mean, nobody wants to sit in front of their computer for 8 hours.
No, absolutely not.
Well, that's what I do. But.
Well, I do too. I mean, besides, when I get done here, I'm going to finish up the next episode of Final Cut Pro Radio. And that'll be the podcast will be out today. I've been doing that for 5.5 years. 5.5 years. The very first guest I had on was Sam Messman. I remember it was January. And he said, "You're doing a podcast?" I said, "Yeah." Started to do a podcast.
Cutting edge, man.
Well, I've been doing podcasts for 15 years, but I decided to do a Final Cut Pro podcast because I knew Final Cut Pro and I know how to do podcasts.
Yeah. Exactly.
So why not? And then I got involved in this live streaming thing. This is like show 171 of live streaming Final Cut Pro Radio. I started at the Creative Summit.
Yeah.
And it's just Facebook Live and just set up the camera and it's fun. I really enjoy it. Well, how else would I talk to you today?
It's true. It's it's nice that we should do this more, man, with everybody. But weren't there those Google Hangouts? That was a thing.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I absolutely
participated in those because I'm a curmudgeon. But
well, that started with I don't know if it started with that or I started with FaceTime Live, which made it easy. Although the original FaceTime Live first one that I did, it's a square. It's 720 by 720 because that's what Facebook Live recorded at in those days.
Yeah.
720 by 720. But it was fun. And it's been fun all along, meeting lots and lots of people.
Yeah.
Anything else? What else about Final Cut before we...
talk about everything you want to know. We talked about trailers. We talked about rolls, which I like. Everybody should use them properly.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know. I just find that, actually somebody, God, who was it? Somebody on Twitter was trying to do batch exports using rolls because I do it in a couple of different ways. I can do it all in the timeline if I just have a few things. And I'm talking specifically about versioning things. I have a TV spot that's starts October 16th, starts Friday, starts tomorrow, now playing. So you just give everything the right role, and you just turn them on and off and hit export, export, export. And you can do it in share settings too. You can make them so you could do, here's all the versions with a stereo mix, and here's the textless version that has, a 5.1 mix or whatever, a mono split, a stereo, a M&E, and you can do all that in one go without making a new project and making a new sequence and bussing, lining, and doing all that. You just go like this, done. But somebody was doing, trying to do it as a batch, because you can have a QuickTime movie and you can do rolls as separate movies, meaning he might have 4 versions and you can just go, this is the October 16th version, this is the Friday version, and
sure.
Just do one export and it makes them all, but you can't embed audio in those. It actually just does the video files.
Really?
Yeah, and you can do audio as a separate file, but
okay.
So he was like, I wish I could do that. And that would be, actually, that's another thing that would be very cool if Apple could do something where you could do rolls as separate video files and attach an audio file with the same roll,
Yes.
So just for stereo stuff. I mean, I think for splits, it might get a little crazy. And then you could literally, if you had 10 versions of a spot, and you have your rolls all set right, you just go export, done.
Right.
You make all your versions. There's no turning things on and off. There's no share. It just happens. That would be very nice.
Yes, batch exporting could use a little love.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice we have it, but
yes, no, it is. It is. So the Final Cut Pro team does watch this video, so they just got your suggestion. You don't have to send that one in if you don't want to.
Well, I think it's like, I think we're batch exporting. It's tough to do. Like, I want to batch export these, but I want them all to be different, and there is no NLE on earth that can do that. But with rolls, you could, and they already have it sort of there. You just need to be able to attach an audio file, make it an embedded multiplex, whatever the hell you call it.
Right. So file. We were talking about rolls and putting a compressor or limiter or EQ on a roll to affect everything in that roll. And then somebody was talking on one of these events that I have live, and they said they'd like to see the same thing for video rolls, being able to color correct one roll, with the master color corrections. I said, that's interesting. I never thought about the video aspect.
Yeah, it would sort of take the place of like an adjustment layer.
Exactly.
So you could attach it to a roll.
Right.
So you've got this is the camera that everything was blue. This is the camera that's balanced correctly. This is, and just like tweak them that way.
Yeah. So that was when they introduced rolls. That was once again original forward thinking with the team, and I don't think they're done with them. I think they're going to do stuff with.
I think, they've been adding stuff for adding features to rolls. I mean, just the way the effects pipeline works was huge, because that basically put in the guts to actually do maybe something in the index or some other interface where you can throw a compressor on it.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, Charlie. Anything else we want to talk about before we head off into the? It's lunchtime for me. Oh, it's a little after lunch.
Yeah, it's time for me to go to work. I'm surprised my messages haven't been pinging this whole time, because that's what usually happens. About this time, it starts going ding, ding, ding.
There you go. So do you have conferences with work every day, or just?
Well, yeah, we do a lot of Zoom meetings and a lot of just messaging. And I have been going to the office occasionally, but it's mostly we're just working from home.
How far is the office from your house?
15 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No, it's easy. And it's nice to stay home, but so when you're working from home, you're living at work. So it's
no, I know. There's both ways. I like work from home. I used to do that when I worked at the archives as much as I could, but they didn't. That was no back in those days. Now it's not an issue. I'm independent, so I get a lot of independent work when I would need it. And I used to have to, go to DC, go to Baltimore, pick up hard drives, bring them back. Now it's like it's expected. 50% of the jobs that I look at, the work that's expected, you're supposed to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's one of the good things.
I think if there's any good thing that's come out of this whole cluster is that, previously, companies that previously were like, you cannot work from home, we're going to be like, yeah, you can work from home.
Yeah, of course you can. I used to bring hard drives home from the archives if there was going to be a snowstorm, because I'm not going into DC when it's going to be a snowstorm. I'm 50 miles from DC. Or if there's any other issue, if I had to work on a weekend, I didn't have to, but if something was happening and somebody needed, I did a video with presidential libraries one time because they're part of the National Archives, and I had Jimmy Carter and George Bush and not Obama, I don't think. It was all the living presidents. They were doing a tribute for one of the presidential libraries, and the event was Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't done because they didn't give me everything that I needed. So I said, I'll take it home on a hard drive. I'm not going to go into DC on the weekend. I'm already coming here already. I took it home on the weekend, worked on it Saturday and Sunday, and I sent it to them on Sunday for the presentation that night. And they really, really appreciated that.
Yeah.
So
it's the new normal, man.
Yeah, that's good. So one of the good things about this software that I have, I use Ecamm Live, is not only I'm posting YouTube comments, but I'm also posting Facebook comments. They all come in here as well. Yeah. So I'm posting them on the stream as they come in.
Is anybody watching? Are we boring anyone?
No. This will have 500 to 1,000 views, perhaps more. I did one last week with Brad on 10/4/10. It's got like 1,800 views so far. I had LumaFusion on, the great folks from LumaFusion, and it's got like 1,200, 1,300 reviews so far. So no, we're doing fine. Because people haven't seen you, have they? They haven't seen you on live.
Probably not. No, I did a radio thing with you a few years ago.
Right, Final Cut Pro Radio, of course.
Haven't seen my beautiful face. I really should have got a haircut. Done my makeup a little better.
Yeah, and those glasses that I put that picture on, I love that picture when I saw it.
I wish I had bought those. Because I'd be wearing them right now.
There you go. People saying, what is that guy doing in that picture? Well, tune in and find out.
What is wrong with him?
Yeah. Well, Charlie, that's fantastic. So I'm going to cut off here and go get something to eat. What about you? You're going to go back to work, you said, for the day?
I'm going to probably refill my coffee, maybe get some breakfast, and then wait for the dinging to start. Go back into my Final Cut project that I was talking about earlier that has this many layers of phone UIs built with Photoshop files and Pixelmator files and masks. And it's fun, but it's fun because I can do it in the timeline. I don't have to
right.
Anything else. I mean, I'm making some of the elements in Pixelmator or whatever.
Yeah, I like Pixelmator. Pixelmator. Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I'm going to go dive into that and see what I've forgotten, because there's a lot of parts when you're building an iPhone UI for an app, or there's a lot of stuff you need to get right.
Yeah. And then the iPhone 12's coming out, and that'll all change again.
Right. Well, we had to change. This is something we had done earlier that had an iPhone 7 interface, and they never, we want it in an iPhone 10. So shout out to Awesome Effects iPhone. It's great. But I got to build all the stuff that goes in it. So
exactly. All righty, we're going to head off here, and I really appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. We'll have you back again. Thanks, Charlie.
Think of something interesting. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for stopping by.